So, Sportime, it was founded in 1998. Is that right?
Officially 1998, yes. Sportime was founded when two companies on Long Island merged. So one of
Okay.
them was a company called Tennis Time, and then another one was called Roslyn Racket Club, and they were pretty much the most successful tennis operators on Long Island, and they merged together to form Sportime. And once we did that, we started adding other components beside tennis. So
Okay.
we added multi-sport components. I'm a volleyball guy, a phys ed guy. We added early education, physical education programs for kids on those spaces. We added adult and junior volleyball, basketball, soccer, hockey. This was well before pickleball really became what it is now.
Mhm.
Summer camps. So that's in 1998 was when it was officially formed, and it became this diversified tennis, fitness, and sports company.
Okay. Very cool. And at the time of the merger, is it how many locations were we talking about at that point?
At the time, Tennis Time had Massapequa, Limbrook, Kings Park. Tennis Time had about 5 locations. Roslyn Racket Club had about 2. So they merged together, and then we've acquired additional properties since the merger, and we've also developed municipal leases with different cities and towns like Randall's Island with New York City, Harbor Island Park in Westchester with the village of Mamaroneck. So we went and created these municipal long-term lease relationships in addition to acquiring more properties and clubs along the way.
Okay. Very cool. And did you say it was 15 locations when we last talked? Is that
So,
right?
so we
About
have
15?
15 tennis, fitness, sports locations, and
Okay.
now we've added an additional 5 dedicated pickleball facilities. So we have 20
Okay.
locations overall.
20 locations overall. Very cool. So tell me about how did you get the municipal deal and how did that work out?
So it was in different areas. A lot of times it's who you know. In Westchester, one of our colleagues was a local resident. He had a strong background in tennis, and he was able to make relationships with the village to say, look, Sportime can come in and invest money to build infrastructure that would then create tennis services for kids and adults in this area. And that relationship was born. The biggest one clearly is on Randall's Island in Manhattan. And that was a relationship with the city of New York, who wanted to develop Randall's Island, which there's lots of famous things there. There's the Icon Stadium, there's the FDNY Training Academy, there's multiple kids' sports fields that are used for summer soccer and baseball and lacrosse. And they really wanted to invest and develop onto Randall's Island. So they chose us to be their partner. And we've spent over $70 million there since 2009, building basically the largest tennis facility in the world now, the largest indoor facility, 29 courts, 3 padel. And then I also think that the relationship with John McEnroe early on to commit to creating the John McEnroe Tennis Academy as part of the project was appealing, as well as the Johnny Mac Tennis Project, which is our 401c3 charity organization to provide tennis to underprivileged kids in Harlem, the Bronx, and other parts of New York City. So it's been a great relationship. The city of New York has done well financially through our relationship. The community has done incredibly well because we service thousands of kids every week with
Hmm.
free tennis as part of that John McEnroe Tennis Project. So it's been a win-win all the way around.
Very cool. With the relationship with John McEnroe, when did he come into that partnership or how did he start that
Yeah.
relationship?
In the 70s, Billie Jean King, who's obviously a tennis pioneer, she started a professional league organization called World Team Tennis, which was a co-ed tennis league that was formed with teams. And her goal was to make it more like team sports, like a lot of cheering and support. It's still around. And back in the 90s and early 2000s, Sportime purchased a World Team Tennis franchise. And initially, we played our matches out at our club in the Hamptons. And once Randall's Island was built, we moved it to the city. And the name of the team was the New York Sport Times. And the captain of that team was John McEnroe, because he was friends with Billie Jean King. He's from New York. He was a big proponent of World Team Tennis throughout his career. So he was our captain, along with his brother Patrick. and a lot of other great stars that would join our team. When we gave up that team, John stayed with us and wanted to build this academy. So the relationship was built through World Team Tennis years before, and it's continued ever since.
Very cool. Very cool. So tell me a little bit about, with 20 locations, that's a lot of logistical work, a lot of management. Do you mind just describing your staff, and from top to bottom, can you give me just a list of who does what? I mean,
Sure.
maybe not specifically, but how's
Yeah.
it structured?
So we have a senior management, kind of executive management team.
Yeah.
There's a handful of people, maybe 6 people on that team. And we basically oversee the strategic vision of the company. So we have our CEO and we have our COO, right? Our director of kind of operations. We have administrative director. We have our CFO. I'm basically the senior managing director in charge of sports and camps. So we diversify that way, but trickle down to that, every location has its own general manager, and
Mm,
general manager has their own team. So they might have a director of tennis, a director of pickleball, a director of volleyball. And then under that, we have support staff, front desk staff, housekeeping, maintenance, coaches. And then we also have a global team that helps all of those managers with their marketing, their HR, their accounting, their social media. So it's really structured where we have a global team at the top that's really there to support all the sites, the site team managers and their businesses.
okay.
And we have about 1,000 employees,
Okay.
full-time, part-time, at any one time. That number is higher in the summer when we have large summer camps, a little
Yeah.
bit lower in the winter when
Yeah.
those camps no longer operate.
Okay. That was going to be my next question. I was going to say how many at each location, but we can do the math. That makes sense.
It varies because at a 29 court tennis club in Manhattan, their staff is much larger
Right.
than 6 court tennis club on Long Island.
Yeah.
So it varies by size of club, by size of business and revenue and volume of players.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Tell me about, I guess, maybe shift to you personally. How did you come to be with Sport Time, and how long have you been there, and what was the background to get there?
So remarkably, I've been there since inception. I actually was working for the company Roslyn Racket Club that was merged to form Sport Time. So they inherited me back then. I had basically was completing a master's degree in physical education from Queens College, where I was also an adjunct instructor. And at the time, my vision was that I was going to go and teach physical education to kids in New York City. And that was what I was good at and what I wanted to do. And then back in the summer of 1996, I got a job working for this new sports center in New York City called Chelsea Piers, which eventually became, to me, Disneyland for adult athletes. I walked in here and I saw a boxing ring, swimming pools, rock climbing walls, beach volleyball courts, hard volleyball courts, a full fitness gym. And I said, wow, you can make money doing this? Like this is great. So I worked there for a year, and an older retired physical education teacher who had mentored me when I started working there, he was hired as a consultant by Roslyn Racket Club to convert one tennis court to a multi-sport facility for other sports to diversify the business. And after he did that, the owner said, do you know anyone that might want to come run this business for me? And he suggested me, he referred me, and I had no intention of doing it. I didn't want to leave New York City and Manhattan, but I just had a great relationship with the owner, and I kind of had this vision of building a youth sports academy. And I took that job, and within a year, the merger took place and the massive expansion of Sportime began. I've been with Sportime since August 22nd of 1998, which was the official first day of the company. So now I'm going on 30, what is it, 28 years? 28 years.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, and over that time, I was able to express my own creativity because there was nothing holding my brain back. I was able to develop sports birthday parties for kids, youth sports development programs. I was able to develop my own high-level volleyball academy, which in 2010 started with 59 kids, and this year we have 8, and we
Hmm.
take them all over the country. So I've been able to express my creativity, and now through pickleball, similarly, develop new programs, try new concepts, run different events, So that's been my progression is, and that's the reason why I think I'm better doing this than being a phys ed teacher, because there are no constraints to our own
Yep.
creativity.
Yeah, that's great. And it sounds like with that many locations and that many um, folks in those locations, you probably had to be very creative in programming and all of those things. So I'm interested to know about because of the experience that you have with these clubs, pickleball has been only a short time of those 28 years.
Very
So
short.
I'm interested to know how did you see it come into the clubs? How did you see it? How did you guys view it in the beginning?
Yeah.
And how do you view it now? Are there ways that you kind of see it in the future? What's the influence been like?
So I would say that pre-COVID, right? So 2019 and before, we were offering pickleball at a very small scale, only on existing tennis courts where
Mhm.
we would paint the lines or tape the lines. And it was simply viewed as a way to fill off-peak tennis court time, period. That was it. So if we were getting $5 a player and putting 8 people on a court, we were thrilled with the $40 because they were doing it at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday, right?
Mhm.
And that was all pre-COVID. Then COVID comes, and we all know what happened, right? It exploded because of the safety of playing outdoor tennis as well, outdoor sports. And we all really just found it to be just this incredible hidden gem that people really had been experiencing for the first time because of the pandemic. And then in 2022, we, along with a real estate partner named Darren Hornig, Darren basically purchased the iconic Port Washington Tennis Academy. So that tennis academy was the very first high level academy in the United States. It was built in the 60s. It's where John McEnroe trained, Patrick McEnroe, Vitas Gerulaitis, Mary Carrillo, all of these famous tennis players grew up playing at this academy. And over the past 20 years or so, the owner at the time had passed away, and the facility fell in a bit of disrepair. And the owner's sister said, "Look, I'd like to sell this asset." It was a nonprofit asset. Darren Horning bought it and then connected with Sportime to be his operating tenant, in which case we also became kind of partners. And during that, collectively, between them and us, we embarked on an $8 million renovation of this iconic facility to bring it back to life. And through that renovation, what was 17 tennis courts, we converted to 13 tennis courts. And then we converted 4 of the courts in a separate building to 12 dedicated pickleball facilities, making it only the third dedicated pickleball facility on Long Island at the time. So that's how we got to that, because we saw the game exploding and coming. We didn't think it was competition for tennis. We thought it was a nice compliment. So that's once we saw the success of that and we saw these courts getting really crowded and we saw potential future visions of junior pickleball to follow the trajectory of tennis, we thought, okay, this is a real thing. And that's when Darren Hornig, his company, and Sportime formed a new company called Sportime Pickleball LLC to embark upon building several dedicated facilities in the tri-state area, which is what we then did between 2023 and now. We've built 5 additional dedicated clubs, 2 in New Jersey, 2 in Westchester, and then 1 additional one on Long Island. So that's how we got to this place. Now, we clearly weren't the only ones thinking that way, because the Port Washington facility at the time that it opened was the third dedicated facility on Long Island in 2023. And at the end of this calendar year, Long Island will have about 25 dedicated clubs.
Right.
So a lot of people had that idea at the same time, and which is basically what has now made pickleball, the business, kind of a war, right? Because we're all vying for the same players, the same dollars, the same interest. So it's become quite a challenge for indoor operators. Yeah.
We always get to this point in these interviews where we're talking about this subject. So how do you differentiate? But you guys obviously have lots of room, lots of locations and things like that, but how do you differentiate? How do you get players coming in? And do you see it being a plateau at any point? Do you see the players growth or the facility number of facilities growing still, or where do you see that?
I think that for tennis, as an example, there are no tennis facilities in our area that look anything like ours. And the reason for that is we've continued to invest in the infrastructure over the years. And a lot of the tennis operators are old timers who they don't want to invest any more money. We can make that argument to our clients, right? That Sportime has the most beautiful facilities. Our pickleball facilities are beautiful, but because other operators built these brand new facilities in Bed Bath and Beyond, Bye Baby, Kmart, right,
Mm,
Targets, Whole
mhm,
Foods, they're all really quite nice. That's no longer the differentiator, really. For us, we have a couple of differentiators, I think. Number one is unlike a company like the Pickler, which is a franchise, and they don't really want too many Picklers close to each other because they're individual franchises. One of our advantages is that our six dedicated clubs are all within an hour drive of each other,
mm,
allows us to leverage events, inter-club leagues, junior programs. The, so that's one thing that separates us or differentiates us, that we can do a lot of fun inter-club events where we have our own ecosystem.
yeah.
The second thing that differentiates us is we have a lot of clubs have memberships, but one of the things our members receive on top of discounts is they get lots of member benefits every month. So we host a lot of member only parties for free. We'll give them free clinics throughout the week. We try to leverage those benefits because whoever's a Sport Time pickleball member, they can access those benefits at all six clubs. So if they want to take a free clinic, which is offered twice a month in Port Washington, and then they want to go to two more in Westbury on the different days, they can do that because their membership is interchangeable. So I think the proximity of our clubs and access to all of those clubs by our members, that's a differentiator. And then the other major differentiator, which really goes back to the article that you guys posted, is our proficiency and dedication to the juniors. So 70% of our tennis business is juniors, 30% are adults. It wasn't always like that. In the 70s and the 80s, it was completely flipped. Our CEO, who's Claude Oken, he loves to talk about how pickleball to him looks a lot like tennis did in the 70s and 80s, where it was a lot of court time and court rentals. And for us, we're developing structured junior programs, entry level clinics, supervised open play, tournaments, summer camps, and then our major program, which is JTP, which is Junior Team Pickleball, which you guys wrote about. And that's basically our own ecosystem where all six dedicated clubs have tryouts. They select players on the team. They get a full team gear package. They get a backpack, jerseys, sweatshirt, swag. They wear to school. They wear to the park. And then every month or two, they go as a team in a different color and they compete against the other Sport Time JTP team. So our last event, which was in March, we had about 90 kids on 45 teams. We had 200 parents, and it was incredible. They're up on the podium getting their medals. This is like the Olympics to them.
Mm,
And our hope is that this gets them to commit more time, more dollars, more training to get better, with the hope that eventually we can take these kids all over the country.
That's awesome.
In PPA, AP, MLP events for juniors. That's the ultimate holy grail. That's what we've done for tennis, and that's what we've done for volleyball. And this is now the ground level of what we're going to try to do for pickleball, because the problem that pickleball has as a business is when you have 80 to 90% of your clientele as adults don't really want to commit to much, right? And they don't have to right now. You guys wanted to play in the park yesterday. You text each other, hey, let's go play. With juniors, parents register them for programs that are longer in duration, for
mm,
consistent coaching, right? Adults don't really always want to be told what to do. The kids
mm.
need coaching, the skill. So I think the major differentiator, the place that we see the game going, is an additional explosion in the junior game, in the youth game, that we hope will bleed over into middle school sports, high school varsity sports. College has club, but maybe a Division I college program onto the Olympics and so on. So those are the three, I think, differentiators: is our proximity, our membership benefits that they can access, and our commitment to junior development.
Yeah, that's a great answer to that question. I appreciate that. That's a lot of good stuff. I could see other owners being very interested in, I could see someone in the situation that you just described where most of their folks are adults and they're seeing low commitment, be like, hey, there's this whole other sector that you haven't even touched, right?
Yep.
Which is the juniors. And I think there's a lot of value there, a lot of value. So speaking of value, tell me a little bit about your profit centers, your revenue generators, obviously the leagues and things that you're talking about with the youth, and that's got to be a good generator for you. What else do you guys use for profit?
So I think industry wide, we're probably as good as any club can be, but about 50% to 60% of our revenue is from court time. And there are a lot of pickleball operators where that run those numbers at 80%, where basically they have a 17-year-old kid at the desk and they're just renting courts. There's no labor, there's no organization, there's no marketing. So clearly, we want to get that 50% as low as we can and replace it with programming, right? Which is revenue you can count on. Whereas court time, like right now, if I look out my window, it looks like it does where you guys are, and we're not going to be that. We're going to actually be busy tonight because it's Cinco de Mayo and people want to drink. But on a nice day, you can't really. It's hard to anticipate court time, which is why it's a really tough thing. And again, what I mentioned before, this is what tennis looked like in the 70s and the 80s. Guys like us would just call each other and say, "You want to play tennis tonight?" That's all gone away, and it's all been replaced with structured programming, mostly juniors. So for us, about 50 to 60% is court time. About 25 to 30% of our revenue is open play, social play. You come at your level, you put your paddle in, you make new friends. And then the other 25 or so percent is generated from instructional programs, leagues, and events.
Okay.
So that's where it's coming from. Now, again, events could be a big number. You could run $1,000 event, or this weekend coming up, we have the 10-10 wins pickleball tournament, which has 300 players on 18 courts. That'll generate a much larger number for this one-day event. So you can make a lot of money on events, but our goal is to try to chip away at that court time to replace some of that court time revenue with higher revenue generating structured programs that requires some kind of commitment. And I think we're all trying to do that. Everybody.
Yeah,
Right.
I love that because the court time goes to and fro based on the weather and time of day, time of
Yeah.
year,
And
but you want to try to get that low as possible. I love that idea.
yeah, and I can tell you, I don't know, Riley, if you had spoken to Darren Horing, but Darren is our 50-50 partner in Sportime Pickleball. And he and his team just started a new company called Courts App. That's an app that's basically designed to allow players to look for available courts in an entire area on one platform. And the goal of it is to become the open for racket sports, right? And it's just getting off the ground, and they use it for sport time. People can find sport time courts on that Courts App platform, and that's another kind of addition to the industry, especially when people are traveling, don't know the area. Maybe they're not so loyal to one club because there's a million clubs in the area they want to. So even the technology like a Courts App is making its way into the market to try to make it even easier for players to find courts when they want, where they want, etc. But yeah, our hope is that we can start bringing court time inventory down and replacing it with more and more committed programming.
Yeah, we love sports. We love a Courts app. I've used it, but they're an advertiser with us, and I think it's a no-brainer. The conversations that I've had with them, it's like, what? There's no reason why a club owner should not have their club on Courts app and use it. It's just it's like you said, the people traveling, people local, just want to find a game. It's a no-brainer. Tell me a little bit about some challenges that you're facing now with pickleball in particular. Are you guys seeing any trends of obstacles that you need to overcome regularly?
Yeah, supply and demand. I mentioned it earlier, but I think that there were just multiple operators, investment groups, all simultaneously without each other's knowledge that decided to get in on this, right? Thinking it's a gold rush, which it isn't. They raised money, they found property, leases, whatever, they staffed, and a lot of them opened within a 6-month window, creating more and more inventory for players, right? So in any business, supply and demand is a real problem, right? If the supply it starts exceeding the demand, then you wind up finding yourself getting creative with pricing, with specials, with off peak time and giving things away. And so I think the biggest challenge we're all facing is that the accelerated timeline that all of these new indoor courts have come to market have made it very challenging for all the operators to really fill time that they would normally be able to fill had there been less courts available. So for instance, like with tennis, the kids practice till about 8 o'clock every day, but from 8 to 11, the adults come in. Would they like to play earlier? Sure. Can they? No. There's no place to go. If you're an adult and you want to play in a tennis league or take a private lesson, you're coming in at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. That's it. With pickleball, if they call me and say, "Can I get a court at 7?" and I say, "I'm sorry, we're booked. You can have a court at 8 or 9," they can just call another place 5 minutes away and get their court. So I think supply and demand has been a real challenge. I do think there's going to be a shakeout where I think a lot of operators that might have been doing this for fun, or they might have been doing this as their second career, and they actually have real responsibilities. I think they're probably going to look to get out, which would probably shrink the inventory and stabilize the market a bit. And we just don't know how long that's going to take, but that's a real challenge. The second challenge is not only are indoor operators competing with each other, but we're competing with free outdoor courts, right? What I'm seeing is a lot of constituents where I live, they've made their voices heard to their local politicians that there are all these parks with unused basketball courts or tennis courts. And guess what? They're all getting converted to pickleball courts, which means there's even more inventory for free outdoors for players to take advantage of. Luckily, at least where we are, I don't know about Georgia, but once we get into mid-June and beyond, there's a lot of days that it's really hot, it's really windy, it rains. So we'll survive the summer because the evenings after work, we do pretty well. Early mornings, people will come in. But the weekends tend to be very quiet in the summer because that's when people want to go to the beach, play in the parks. So I think trying to give people reasons to come continue to play when the weather is like it is today, that's an ongoing challenge for all of us as well.
One
Right.
of the things we've heard is, yeah, feeling the pressure when the competition is becoming more and more. And what I've heard from some operators, owners, is that temptation to doubt your product, have less confidence. So maybe you give more things away because you're feeling that pressure. So how do you think about that? That finding the balance between being competitive and what you're giving away versus being confident that you're giving out a good product.
Yeah. So the answer to that for me is we want to do that with a scalpel, not a sledgehammer, right? Because what you described is what we call an unfortunate race to the bottom, right? And we're seeing that, and they're doing it with a sledgehammer, where certain clubs are just saying, you know what? Don't forget this. Just it's $99. Come on in for the month, play as much as you want. That's a sledgehammer, and that's not wise. A scalpel is saying, okay, 12 to 4, Monday through Friday is really quiet. Let's give something there. Let's do a BOGO where you buy 1 hour, get one free. Let's be strategic based on the supply and demand metrics, as opposed to just saying, throwing your hands up and offering open play for $5 a person. So the answer to that is, yeah, we're very careful to see what the competitors are doing so that we can remain competitive, but in a strategic way that's not giving up on the things that we're proud of, that we know we can still attract players at the right price, no matter what time of the week it is.
That's good. Love it.
Yeah, that is good. All right, I had a question about any unique programming outside the youth. Do you have any that have worked really well? I know we've heard from lots of different people that certain things have worked. Most people do a beginner's clinic that works well. Outside of those, have you guys seen any that you're really excited about that work well?
Yeah, so two of the things that we're doing that have been going really well. One is we have a pickleball 101 program, and this is a 4-week introductory program for players who have never played. So we're offering this in our three regions, which is Long Island, New Jersey, Westchester. And in New Jersey, we probably had over 150. Now, we did a social media campaign. We spent a lot of money on marketing, but we've had over 150 to 200 new players take advantage of this 4-week low cost introductory program. We love this concept and this vehicle because what happens is at the end of the 4 weeks, our coaches are able to guide these players into a 201 program, an intermediate clinic, a supervised open play, because now they've got the skills to actually play with others. So the 101 program, and we've added this program for kids as well, Pickleball 101 for kids. This has been a great program for us to attract new players. That's for sure. Another program we're doing that we're excited about and we're taking it slowly is our ATP program, which stands for Adult Team Pickleball. So basically what we're doing, again, to leverage our proximity, is we're putting together MLP style teams of 4, men and women, 2 men, 2 women at each level. And then those teams are going to go and battle other Sportime ATP teams. So again, it's a closed ecosystem, but other clubs can do it within their own club, right? And they really loved it because the women got a chance to cheer on the men, cheered on the women. They did a Dream Breaker singles game, which for many of them was completely foreign. They never played singles before, and they loved it. Every club represented with a different color shirt, like the kids. So it was really a way to merge, to try to introduce the team concept to these adults to take advantage of the social aspect of the game. And that's been really popular. We've had multiple ATP events so far, and we've got several coming up this summer. So I'm really excited about getting more and more players to play in that MLP style. And then on June 25th, the weekend of June 25th, Sportime is hosting the MLP professional event at Randall's Island. So hopefully a lot of these players, after playing MLP style, will want to get tickets and come and actually watch the pros do it in person.
Yeah. I guess a really quick follow-up to that, since you mentioned the event, are there other events that you guys have seen that works well for your facilities? Do you guys host lots of tournaments and things like that?
Yeah, MLP, this will be our second year hosting that. 1010 Wins, which is a huge radio station in the New York area. They host 2 annual events, usually one in Randall's Island, and now for the first time this Saturday in our facility in New Jersey. And they attract 150 teams, big event. And then we get contacted by a lot of national organizations that want to use our facility to promote larger events. We're hosting the PPA Amateur State Championships for New York's at our club in Armonk the weekend of September, which is a 3-day tournament. And then the winning teams receive entry fees into the World Championships in Dallas, which is in November. So we have the infrastructure and the right number of courts and playing conditions to attract some of these larger operators.
Very cool. That's all the questions I have. Brady, you have any?
Yeah, I was just going to touch on one.
Yeah,
You mentioned earlier, you were talking about how in the 70s and 80s tennis industry, it was mainly adults and then flowed into a lot of junior programming. It sounded like you were saying, or maybe inferring, this is the question is, do you see pickleball taking the path of tennis? Because we've heard a lot of people say, it's not tennis, it's not tennis.
No.
But you've inferred that, hey, that maybe this is the path. So what do you think?
Well, I would say without having a crystal ball, we're banking on it. Because to be honest, if tennis looked now, today, like it did in the 70s and 80s, we'd probably be out of business. Because it was basically what we like to call a landlord-tenant relationship, where somebody like you would say, hey, I'm going to rent a court for 20 weeks. I'm going to bring all my friends in. That's not really the pathway to financial success. So the pathway to financial success is to create training academies that require coaching that can bring kids up from a very young age all the way through middle school, high school, college, and so on. I do think that it's positioning itself to follow that trajectory. This is anecdotal evidence, but I guarantee you, if you were to poll 100 summer day camp operators around the country, they would tell you that pickleball is one of their campers one of their most favorite activities. It is for us.
Mm.
So I think between physical education classes, where it's now a part of curriculum in many school districts, summer camps, where it's a big part of their day, I think that's creating a buzz and energy. I don't think we'll see a true explosion until the middle schools, the high schools adopt it as a structured team sport, right? Because what makes tennis and volleyball so successful is that the kids that come to us for those sports, they also want to get better for their high school team, and they want to make their high school team to be with their friends. So there's a social component to it. Right now, the pickleball kids that play are doing it because they love it. They're not doing it to make their school team. But over time, I think that it's going to trickle up from the young kids and it's going to trickle down from the pros who are going to be pushing it to become an Olympic sport. And when those two things collide, I think we're going to see it operate a lot more like tennis, volleyball, soccer, and other mainstream junior activities.
Joe, we ask everybody this.
Right.
If there are people who are reading this or watching this and saying, I wish that I could be in your shoes, what advice would you give them, especially owners or operators of pickleball places?
One thing I would tell them is, unlike other activities where you're signing someone up for a long duration and all of your sales and marketing is focused to a small window, like September, pickleball operators need to be ready to market every day. And that means texting, emails, social media. We just had a meeting before this and we talked about how we have a weekly program menu of everything we offer, and we're changing it almost every other day because we're realizing this didn't work, but people are asking for this. So let's add this to the menu. So I would say you have to be very flexible. You have to be aggressive with your marketing and awareness, and you can't be afraid to be creative because you'd be surprised about the next big thing, what that is. So that's what I would really advise operators is come up with new things all the time, market all the time, and try to find those sweet spots that'll get people to really love what you're doing and commit to come to your club consistently, or even better, register for longer duration programs so you don't have to worry about going after them every single day.
It's awesome. Very applicable. So I
We're all
appreciate
going
that.
we're all going through the pain.
Right.
We're all going through it. And again, it's really hard to achieve what I just said with adults. Like that's really the challenge, is trying to get adults to commit their time and their money is a real challenge in any sport. And I can tell you, even in volleyball, for 10 years, I didn't have a volleyball academy. I just did adult leagues. And I had a lot of people that would pay us $150 and they'd play for 10 weeks and it was great. Never made a lot of money. Once we added the junior training component, now it's a multi-million-dollar revenue stream because they're committing $4,000 or $5,000 a player for 24 weeks. So now it's up to us to deliver the product. So with pickleball, we have to not only deliver the product, but we have to try to get you to come back for another product tomorrow. So it's a constant grind until we can create that stability. And I don't think anyone's there yet, but hopefully we get there.